privilege to be with the saints of Leesburg. Come and worship here today. And thank you, young people, for the music. I was just personally blessed. There's something of a different energy and a different kind of stuff that comes when our young people just provide their gifts before Jesus. And I just want you to know I was personally blessed by the music, and duly noted. And a couple weeks ago I had the privilege of preaching in a church I've never had the privilege of preaching at before. And that was the church at Smyrna. Have you ever heard of the church of Smyrna? It's one of the 7 churches of the book of Revelation. And I was in Izmir, Turkey, and I preached at our church there. And it was a fascinating experience, realizing in the whole country of Turkey there are less than 150 Seventh-day Adventists. And so it's just a small group, but they're doing everything they can to get the message of Jesus out. And what was interesting is there were 2 young people there as well. And they were Iranian Kurdish refugees who had become Adventists, and they had made their way into Turkey because of the persecution in Iran. And to sit and listen to them of their story of faith at the ripe old age of 20, of what they had already been through in trying to stay true to Jesus, for me was inspiring to think of what they had in their travels. But that was the church of Smyrna. We need to keep all of our churches in our prayer, because we have no idea what many of them are really going through on a week-to-week basis to be able to live out their faith in Jesus. And so let's continue to keep them in prayer. And as was mentioned this morning, also our brothers and sisters, obviously down in Virginia Beach. No one should ever have to face a tragedy like that. And yet it is becoming way too commonplace in our culture. And let's pray for those who are not able to be with their families today. And as many of our own of Virginia Beach are hurting pretty deeply today. But God is still in control. He is still the one who is sovereign. And He sees with a weeping eye the evil of man. And I know that in the prayer of all of our hearts is, Jesus, may it be soon. Come, Lord Jesus. And so today I want us to look at a story that's very familiar in the Scriptures. Luke chapter 19. The story of, however you may say it, some say Zacchaeus, some say Zacchaeus, but as a kid growing up, I knew it as Zacchaeus because we sang a song. Remember that song? Zacchaeus was a what? Wee little man. A wee little man was he. He climbed up into you know the song too. It's pretty good. For what? The Lord he wanted to see. And as the Savior passed that way, he looked up what? In the tree, and he said, Zacchaeus, you come down, for I'm going to your house today. Well, we have sung that song, but I've always wondered, why would an aristocrat, why would someone of his esteem actually have the courage, in spite of ridicule and derision, and in spite of breaking all the cultural norms, in broad daylight, why would a rich man climb up into a tree? Well, we say it's the culture then. No, it would be just as strange today as it was then. Aristocrats in fine clothing would not go out on a limb on their own. So what would drive a rich man out onto a limb? So we come to this testimony of a short man. And I want you to hear, I'm going to do something a little different than what I usually kind of do when it comes to sermon time. Is that all right? I want you to hear the words of one of my favorite authors. And then we'll go from there. Fair enough? And one of my favorite authors is from Sons and Daughters of God, page 342. It would be well for us to spend a thoughtful hour each day in contemplation of the life of Christ. But here are the next few words. We should take it point by point and let the imagination grasp each scene. Do you have an imagination? Young people are good with imagination. Are you with me? Yeah. Sometimes the older we get, our imagination starts to dry up because we like everything to be in our sharp and nice little boxes. And so our imaginations don't work quite so well. But today I want us to use our imagination about this little short guy and what might have been like in a day of the life of Zacchaeus that might have driven him to climb up into a tree. Is that fair? Are you with me? Is that okay? So in order for us to answer this question, we must understand, where was it that Zacchaeus lived? Well, our Bibles tell us that he lived in Jericho. So I want you to go with me, if you will, on an imaginary journey. And so we're going to travel to the backside, kind of an out-of-the-way place in the sweltering, fly-infested land of Palestine, and come to a difficult, dry, barren terrain until we come to the fragrant field city of Jericho, where Zacchaeus lived. The land of palm trees, and the land of pomegranates and springs and roses. And Cleopatra herself visited Jericho, this city below sea level. And for this is the time and the home of the short man, despised man, and the tax collector, Zacchaeus. So we're going to rise early with him one morning as he is prepared, and we're going to travel with him and follow him on one of his tax collecting days. We're going to observe what he encounters as he endeavors to collect taxes. And so he's going to be heading north this day out of Jericho in his covered little chariot with some Roman soldiers, because he needed that extra little scene of authority as he would go up to someone's home to collect the taxes. And as he traveled at a good clip, he brings out his day-timer in order to see the addresses of where he was going to go collect those taxes of those who had not paid their taxes. It wasn't long before he arrives at the first door, at the first stop, and he notices that it is a very unkempt shanty of a house. It needs paint. It needs repairs. But those don't matter to Zacchaeus, because he's there to do what? Collect taxes. The only thing that matters is that on this piece of paper that he has there, it has unpaid. And he's going to collect taxes this day. And so it is that he goes up and he knocks on the door with the eerie sound of an Alfred Hitchcock movie door swinging open. On the other side is a frail, blind man. The blind man said, "Who's there?" And the answer came, "My name is Zacchaeus, and I'm here to collect the taxes you owe to the Roman government." In a trembling little voice, the blind man began to explain his inability to pay his taxes. He said, I have no family, and I don't receive any pension, and there's no society to help the blind here in my community. I want to pay my taxes, but I'm not able to. But Mr. Zacchaeus, if you'll give me 30 days, I'll do what I can so I can pay my taxes. Well, now Zacchaeus is caught between money and mercy. And Zacchaeus says, "That's not usually my style, but you have 30 days. But Mr. Blind Man, listen here carefully. When I get back, if you don't show me the money, you'll be blind and homeless." He turned, and as he walked away, he thought, maybe I'll have better luck at the next house. Well, it wasn't long before he got to the second house, the second individual on his day timer that he had put. He knocks on the door, and there's a woman on the other side of the door, and Zacchaeus saw that there was a problem. The woman was completely yellow, as if there was no blood in her veins. Her hair was matted, and her face was wet with tears. Her speech was slurred. And she said, I know who you are and why you've come, but Zacchaeus, I don't have any way of paying my taxes. You see, for 12 years, I've had a blood disorder. And in that time, my insurance was canceled, my husband divorced me, and my inheritance was spent on doctor's bills. I need 30 days. Can you give me 30 days, Zacchaeus? Now Zacchaeus is caught between greed and grace. He said, for some reason, I feel benevolent today. You've got 30 days. But when I get back, I expect you to pay your taxes. As he rode away, he thought, maybe I'll have better luck at the next house. So we follow him as he rides in his chariot down the bend of the road to the next house where he's to collect taxes. In front of the house stood a woman. And in front of the house, that woman is listless. She stares off into what seems to be nothing. And as he gets closer, he recognizes that she doesn't seem to have any life about her. He tries to speak to her, but there's no response from her. And as Zacchaeus is standing there, all of a sudden there's a blood-curdling cry, a scream comes out from behind him. He whirls around and he looks up on the hillside. There, running between the tombstones, is a nude man in the graveyard, cutting himself, and he's somewhat of a cross between a man and a beast. Suddenly the woman spoke. That used to be my husband. He was a good man. But now I'm praying that one day he'll be able to come back home. I have to move on with my life, and I love him. He's the father of my children. I don't know if it will ever happen. No man can tame him. No man can bind him. He calls himself Legion because he's possessed with so many demons. Not anxious to dialogue with demons, Zacchaeus begins to backpedal. Caught between demons and denarii. It's not a pleasant reality. Before the woman said anything about the taxes, he said, I'll be back in 30 days, lady. Just have them ready. As Zacchaeus hurries away, with his heart still palpitating, he looked in his daytimer. There's one more house to visit. When he arrives at this house, there above the door is a spray hanging on the door, suggesting that someone has just died. He knocks anyway, because he's there to collect what? The taxes. A grieving woman, veiled in black, answered the door. She said, Zacchaeus, I know who you are, and I know why you've come. Zacchaeus, my son died yesterday, and I'm on the way to the funeral. I had to use my tax money in order to bury my only son. Now Zacchaeus is caught between extortion and empathy. He says, I've already given some of your neighbors 30 days, so I'll be back in 30 days, lady, but have your taxes ready. 30 days passed quickly. And Zacchaeus left that 30 days later home pretty early. It went by so fast. He opened up the daytimer again and he realized, oh man, I'm going back and visiting the people in which was the most unproductive day of my entire life in the tax business. He squared his shoulders and he got into his chariot and resolved, no sob stories today. I need the taxes. They're either going to pay, surrender their property, or be thrown into prison. The first house, he noticed a change. The grass had been manicured. The house had been painted. Repairs had been made. He knocked on the door, and a man with piercing eyes and authority in his voice answered. Zacchaeus said, I'm sorry, sir, but I'm looking for the man of the house. The man said, I am the man of the house. Zacchaeus said, no. When I came here 30 days ago, the man of the house was blind. One day, the man said, I am that man, and I was blind. But Mr. Zacchaeus, let me tell you my story. One day a man told me that Jesus was coming to town. So I ran and I stumbled uptown, and I knew that it might be the only chance I ever had in my life to meet Jesus. And when Jesus was passing by, I heard all the commotion. And so I started to yell out, Jesus, have mercy on me. And I yelled louder and louder. And the townspeople, they told me I had to be quiet. And the mayor and the city council came up and said, hush, you're a nuisance. You're embarrassing us. But I screamed, Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me. Tried to push me to the ground. But I knew it was my only chance. Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me. The man said, Zacchaeus, do you have time? Sit down, I want to tell you this story. I'll tell you all about it. This is the way it was. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound. It saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. I was blind, but now I see. As Zacchaeus rode away, he thought, wow, this is some day. A man who was blind, but who can now see. One day I hope to meet Jesus. Maybe Jesus can do something about my condition. That man said that this world's gods of the pursuit of authority and fame and sexual attractiveness, wealth, has blinded the minds of unbelievers. So they can't see the light of the gospel, the glory of Christ, who is in the image of God, the only one in whom we can find true joy. Zacchaeus thinks, I hope someday I get to meet Jesus. But he's riding down to the second house. He's got full resolve now, and he knocks on the door, and to the door there comes a very beautiful woman. She is radiant with joy, and she answers the door, and she has color in her cheeks, and she has a new hairstyle. Her nails have been freshly polished. Mr. Zacchaeus, she says, it's good to see you. Zacchaeus said, I'm looking for the woman of the house. She said, I am the woman of the house. Wait a minute, says Zacchaeus. Do you know your blind neighbor down the street? Yeah, I know him, but he's not blind anymore. Zacchaeus said, I know. He paid his taxes today. She answered, didn't he tell you? He sold his C&I dog. The woman said, Zacchaeus, when I told you to come back 30 days ago, that was nothing but a ploy. I was confident that in 30 days I would be dead. In fact, I had been praying to die. I thought that only death could deliver me from this unbearable existence that I was in. But a friend of mine told me about Jesus, and that Jesus was coming to town. So I elbowed my way through the crowd, hoping just to get a glimpse, hoping just to be able to touch his garment. And when I got close enough, I stretched out with everything that I had. And I was just able to touch the fringe of his garment. And at that moment I touched him. My blood systems work perfectly, and they have been flowing ever since. But not only was my body healed, my soul was made whole as well. Even though my faith was inadequate, Jesus made it sufficient. He says, I don't know how much of this I can take. A blind man who can see, and a dying woman who's full of life. Zacchaeus, do you have time? Can you sit down? I want to tell you my story. She says, Zacchaeus, I know it's hard to believe. I've had some good days, but I've had an awful lot of bad days and a lot of hills to climb. I've had some weary days and a lot of sleepless nights. But when I look around and I think things are over, all my good days outweigh my bad days. I've made up my mind and I won't complain. What can wash away my sin? Nothing but the blood of Jesus. What can make me whole again? Nothing but the blood of Jesus. Oh, precious is the flow that makes me white as snow. No other fount I know, nothing but the blood of Jesus. Zacchaeus, I haven't had to pay my doctors anymore, so I've been able to save a little money. Like my old ex-blind friend, here's the money for your taxes. Zacchaeus whirls away, and he heads down towards the third house. He thought, boy, this is an unusual day. I wonder if I could ever meet Jesus. Like that woman, I've had some long-standing problems. Selfishness, pride, depression. Had some really painful experiences. Maybe if I meet Jesus, he could do something about my condition. He bumps on down the road. Soon he's in front of that third house. He looked for the woman to be standing out in front of the house, but she's not there. He kept looking over his shoulder to see if Mr. Demon was going to appear. When he knocked on the door, the woman answered. But before they could start talking, this handsome young man walked out from behind her. Zacchaeus' first thought was, it's about time you got rid of Mr. What's-His-Name Demon. God of life. Kick that old grave dweller to the curb. About that time, the woman said, Mr. Zacchaeus, I want you to meet my husband. You haven't met this man because when you were here 30 days ago, well, his home was in the graveyard. But look at him. Doesn't he look handsome? And he's in his right mind. Mr. Zacchaeus, I owe you an apology. 30 days ago, I told you that no man could tame him. That was before Jesus. When Jesus walked in, the demons ran out. And look at him. He's like a new man. Mr. Zacchaeus, if you want to be a new man, meet Jesus. He'll give you a new relationship with your family, with yourself, and with God. Old things are passed away. And behold, all things can become new. He met Jesus, and it changed his life. Her husband says, Zacchaeus, you have a little time? Why don't you sit down and let me tell you the story? My chains are gone, and I've been set free. My God, my Savior, has ransomed me. And like a flood, his mercy reigns. Unending love, amazing grace. The earth shall soon dissolve like snow, the sun forbear to shine. But God who called me here below will be forever mine. Will be forever mine. You are forever mine. As Zacchaeus left, he thought, a blind man who can see, a dying woman who is full of life, and a demon man who's been delivered. Maybe if I met Jesus, I too could be delivered. The last house, he thought rather sarcastically, I wonder what surprises are here. When he knocked at the door, the cutest little 12-year-old boy opened the door. Zacchaeus said, I'm sorry, but I'm at the wrong house. The house I'm looking for doesn't have a little boy. In fact, 30 days ago, the woman at the house was in on her way to bury her only son. The boy said, are you Mr. Zacchaeus? Mom has been looking for you all day. She said that you'd be back in 30 days. And Mama says you're never late when it comes to collecting taxes. Zacchaeus said, well, wait a minute. In the house I'm looking for, the little boy is dead. The boy said, Mr. Zacchaeus, I am that boy. I died. But my mama's worst fear was that the disease that took my daddy and my older brothers was going to take me someday. And 30 days ago, my mama's worst fear came true, and I got real sick. And my mother, she prayed for me. But God didn't answer her prayer. And I died. She stayed by my bedside all day and night. God didn't choose to heal me. My mother had saved the money to pay you, but she had to use the money for my funeral. Well, as the mourners led the procession out of Nain, there was another procession going in. And the procession of death collided with the procession of deity. Now, Mr. Zach, you need to know that death and deity cannot occupy the same space. Amen. You know that Jesus never attended a funeral. He never preached a funeral sermon. Every time he showed up, he transformed the funeral into a resurrection. And there we were at the gate, death and deity. Jesus laid his hand on me, and something began to move in my body, and I came back to life, Mr. Zach. And when I sat up in the casket, it scared the undertaker so bad that he pushed me out of the casket. And he gave my mother's money back. And here's the money to pay the taxes. By the time the little boy sat up in the casket, it was a changed event. By the time the little boy finished talking, his mom came out. She said, "He's just 12. He knows a little bit because he's been through it. But let me tell you, you got a little time, Zacchaeus? I need to tell you the story." Zacchaeus says, "Well, tell me about it." And this is what she said. "Great is thy faithfulness. O God, my Father, there is no shadow, no turning of death. Indeed, thou changest not, thy compassions, they fail not. As thou hast been, thou forever will be. Great is thy faithfulness. Morning by morning, new mercies I see. All I have needed, thy hand hath provided. Great is thy faithfulness, Lord, unto you." Zacchaeus closed his book, and on his way home he passed a friend. "Hey, Zach, have you heard?" Zacchaeus answered, "I've heard all I can handle for one day." No. Jesus is in town today. "No, I hadn't heard." Man said, "You better hurry because Jesus is leaving Jericho now." So he spurred his entourage on. Along that dusty road, his life began to flash before his eyes. I wonder if I can meet Jesus. All of my life, I've been a successful failure. I've been a paradox, an oxymoron. I leaned my ladder against this building of success, and I climbed the very top rung and realized that my ladder was against the wrong building. I'm rich in the things of the world, but poor in the things of God. Maybe Jesus can do something about the emptiness that fills my soul. The crowd is coming out of the city, and it's so many people that Zacchaeus can't get close. As he sees where the crowd is coming, he sees there's only one chance for him to maybe possibly see Jesus. And that's what drives a rich aristocratic tax collector in all of his fine robes to climb a sycamore tree. Because for one moment he wants to see Jesus. Got there. Climbs up that tree. Can it be? There he comes, Jesus. So I've been wondering what drove him up the tree. It was his shortage in his relationship with Jesus. It was being a successful failure, recognizing that he did more in his life than all that he thought the world could provide. He realized there was only one who could fill the gnawing of his soul, and that was Jesus. So there he is, that successful failure. He is in the tree, watching as the crowd goes by. He was seeing all these things that Jesus had done in the lives of other people. Is it possible that Jesus could do something in his life? Is it possible that what Jesus has done for others, he can do for me? Yeah, that's what compelled a short man to climb up into a sycamore tree. And he was there in that tree, and as Jesus came by, the Jesus that you and I know stopped. And what does he do? He looks up into the tree. And he says, Zacchaeus, come down. For today, I'm going to your house.
Amen.
Salvation has come to you. You see, Zacchaeus realized, first I've got to invite Jesus to my home and with me. Because Jesus makes a difference when he goes home with us. In fact, if Jesus doesn't go home with us, he doesn't go at all, because he knows that who we are at home is who we really are. So there it is, Zacchaeus is with Jesus. Today, Jesus is walking right into your life. Are you open to what it is that Jesus can bring to you? Jesus wants to go home with you today for salvation.